Hey folks, LA Little here, TA today. Today I'm going to give you a few trades. I'm going to look at it both from a swing trade perspective and I'm going to look intraday perspective on a couple of them and just give you some trades that are going to come up this week, it looks like, in front of the Fed. So let's dive in here. Okay, so these are really not any particular order. I'm going to start with Robinhood. You know, if you look at Robinhood long-term, long, big, prosperous move to the top side, right? This thing's already done a 10x. Okay, so you may say, well, this thing done, right? And it may be, but doesn't look like it to me. So long term looks great. Let's go to the weekly. Here's the weekly. Got a little bit of a retrace back into this gap area, filled that, a little bounce up. Now let's go to the daily. Here's the daily. On the daily, it just did something that is intriguing in that it got over the bearish retest regions. There was one here, there was another one, a little small one back here. And so you dove up underneath them, right? You broke down here, you broke the swing points. You can see the little arrows here telling you that. Now you come back, you gap up, get the quick pullback with the kind of a hammer reversal, kind of a pickaxe reversal, and now you're pushing back up again, a little bit of a pullback on Friday. What is it shooting for? Well, this thing's been extremely strong, right? When you have a stock that's this strong, it's not going to just dive and give it all up unless something major goes wrong with it. More than likely, you're going to try and push back up to the top. So that's a trade. How big of a trade is it worth it? Well, you're at 132 roughly. 152 is the tops. You can get 30 on a 150. That's not a bad move. So what is the trade? Well, the trade is to buy it where it is almost, right? You could get it here. Maybe you get a little bit cheaper. And we'll look at the intraday to see that. But what are you shooting for? You're shooting for this swing point high, that swing point high, and the one above it. You got these two big bars down. This is the one that's probably going to give you trouble, is this area right in here. So that's going to be the trouble area. That's where it's going to pop to and hesitate again, more than likely. You've got several bars there that are telling you that. You've got this bar, you've got that bar, and you've got this bar up here. So the congruence of those three bars, more than likely, along with that swing point high, is going to make this tough to get over on whatever this next push is. And so that's probably your target, right? You're not going to go for the top on the first move. You're probably going to go for there. So can you make that work? Well, let's pop into intraday and look at it. So when we pop in and look at it intraday, right, we've got a setup here that is pretty solid. And what I'm looking at when I'm saying that is I'm looking at both the 10-minute and the 30-minute here. I've got a disconnect right now, but let's not worry about that. So here's your weekly, and here's your 2-day 10-minute bars. And again, just like I do on Neoclassical, when I'm doing the charts themselves that I have, I'm looking at basically 60 bars on a chart is what I'm trying to do. So 2 days, 10 minutes gives you about that. So what do we got? Well, here's the high, here's the low on Friday. You can see it came down, did an ABCD structure down, and just basically went sideways after that. If you look over here on the weekly though, you can see that low is very close to what is a bullish retest region right below it. And so this went up farther, finally escalated back down, right? And now is attempting to come back into this and test it for the first time after way more than 6 bars. Actually, it's the second time there was a slight test there. And so regardless, this looks like the spot right in here. And so what I'm going to do is focus on that area on Monday morning for a potential purchase, right? Stop's going to be up underneath it. And what are we doing? We're shooting for not only a push back up to here, but a push back over that, and then to take us back up into this swing point high and into that area that we talked about. So in other words, if you can buy it in here, you're buying it at roughly 128.5 or so, maybe 129, and you're shooting for about 142. That's a decent trade, and that's the kind of setups that I like to take. So that's one idea. Let's look at another one. So here's another one. This is URA, it's ETF. You could actually dig around inside of it if you wanted to find some stocks, but the ETF is set up pretty nice. If you look at it on long term, big spike up, you went from like 19.5 all the way to 60. If you look at it on the weekly, the thing to really notice here is you left volume at the top, right? You got a nice big spike up, volume at the top, right? That's the sort of thing that says, hey, you know, and especially the way it played out, right? You go up and you close lower than you open. So that says you're going to get some pullback. Definitely got the pullback. That was like a 33% pullback. Now you're starting to climb back up into this thing. And so that's, you know, that's a bullish scenario the way it's set up. And if you go to the daily, it's got some more work to do, but it's doing what it has to, right? It had this big wide price spread bar, hammer reversal down at the bottom, climbs up, does an ABCD up. Now it's coming back in some on this bearish retest regen, this bearish retest regen, that one. You got 3 in a row. Yeah, you're going to find some pressure there. That makes sense. You're coming up into a swing point high. You're going to get a pullback into this guy, and that's going to be the setup. Now let's look at it inside, you know, on a 30 and a 10 minute. Okay, moving to the intraday here, I've got the 30-minute up and the 10-minute up, and so on the 30-minute here, you know, if we look at it, the standout bar, of course, is this big wide price spread bar from Friday. So that's the big bar, and you don't have great volume on it. You actually have more volume down here on this bar that was undercut, but that's certainly the wide price spread bar, and so you got to get back over this top for anything to happen, right, on the upside. Question is what do you do on the downside, right? You've got these two bars right there, this little area right here, right? That's the area that is most interesting. That happens to be the white line, which is right under 47. If we go back and I pull up the daily again, the 47, 46 and a half, that's that swing point high that we were talking about. So coming back into that, that would be a good place to locate a buy. So that's about $1 down. So that, you know, that's basically the way the 30-minute lines up. There's not a lot to work with there. What I'm more interested in is what's happening on the 10-minute. On the 10-minute, you know, we got these lows here, rolled over, back up, rolled over again. Looks to me like this is going to try and roll lower again back to this line, which is where this ledge is. And so I'm thinking, you know, let's see if we can get some weakness, get some sort of reversal back down in this area, and then we can put on a pretty decent play, whether we're trying to trade, you know, the daily chart or whether we're trying to trade the intraday chart. The intraday chart is interesting down around that area. And why? Well, because you can set your stops in below this low here. And so you're shooting for, you know, quite a bit of a way back up to there, worst case, potentially, you know, break out and move on up to those highs. So I like this setup just like I like the other setup. It's got potential. So if you like what I'm doing here, you know, give me a like, subscribe. I'm going to try and do a video each day if I can this week, highlighting a couple trades, both on daily charts and on the intraday charts for those of you that are trading in the day. Have a great one. See you next time.